Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to this special edition of That's a Shoot. Usually, my weekly episodic show where I talk about what's going on in the world of wrestling. And today, we are reviewing WWE Evil, a docu-series, 8 parts that came out on Peacock. And it's a documentary about like the evil personalities of the WWE and the bad guys, so to speak. And I thought this was a really well done docu-series. I thought it was a great. That was a great one. I think they picked some of the interesting ones. I think we're gonna go over them. I watched all 8 in the past maybe 16 hours. I started like yesterday at 6 o'clock at p.m. at night, and I finished today at about 12:30. So yeah, it's really fun. Got some thoughts on each episode. I'm gonna get those to you. So yeah, let's go ahead. Let's talk about WWE Evil streaming on Peacock. So the first episode was on Hollywood Hulk Hogan, and they go through like the stuff that of the senior prayers, each of Vitamins Hogan of the '80s. They talk about what was happening in the '90s and how things were starting to flip for Hogan and things like that. And they talk about him going jumping from WWE to WCW, and how even then at the beginning it was cool because it was a new place, but he could start to hear some of the things, and then so maybe get some groans from the crowds, and even maybe some boos and everything like that. And then we talk about the the change of the business. Scott Hall, Kevin Nash joining WCW, and then talking about the third man, who the third man was. And Bischoff didn't have an idea of the third man. He really didn't. And it was supposed, and then Hogan calls him and tells him that he wants to be the third man. He wants to turn heel. When just a few months ago, when Bischoff had the idea of turning heel, Hogan, didn't want to do it. But again, Hogan, seeing seeing how hot Scott Hall and Kevin Nash was, latched on to him. And so yeah, and and so then he joins the NWO. The backup plan was supposed to be Sting, which I would have loved to have seen that. Sting turned to being heel, in WCW, not in TNA. That would have been awesome. And then we talk about the NWO and Hollywood Hogan and what the things that he did and the things that he became, and they play a clip of him being given an award for the most hated man in America. When the guy said, well, at one point we gave you the award for being the most loved man in America. Now how did you go from the most loved to the most hated? And we talk about Hogan. We talk about all of the things that went down with WCW. And then we go into this thing where I think they kayfabe it. There's some things in this episode where I think they keep kayfabe for some reason. And I think this is one of them because they talk about WCW in the dying days in 2000, the Hogan versus Jarrett match, where Jarrett lays down 1, 2, 3, and and Hogan gets on the mic, and then Vince Russo comes out later and cuts a promo on Hogan that is just awful. There's just that causes Hogan to sue Vince Russo and everything like that. And Hogan's never seen on WCW television again. But they kayfabed it as this is as if this was real. But I think we know the story, right? That yeah, Vince Russo wanted to put the title on Jeff Jarrett from Hogan. Hogan didn't like that, so they came up. So then they came up with a with an idea that Jarrett was just going to lay down for Hogan and this, but the way they talked about it as if this wasn't talked about, if this wasn't done. Now maybe I've been wrong, about this, and maybe this was real and this wasn't scripted. Because from what I've always thought, that the thing with Jared was scripted. That was going to happen because he wasn't. It was going to happen. They scripted Jared to lay down for Hogan, and then he was going to cut a promo on WCW, and then and then Vince Russo was gonna come back out, say tell Hogan to go F himself, and then they were gonna do Jared versus Booker, right? And then Hogan would come back, and then there would be Jared versus Hogan, find out who's the real WCW champion. That's how I've always heard it has been. But then Vince Russo went over the line too much in his promo, and Hogan sued him and never came back. But they talked about it as if this was real. It really was happening. So I'm very confused on now. So do all of that. They talk about Hogan going back to WWE and then match with Rock and everything like that, and then bringing back out the red and yellow for that. So yeah, there's a lot of things in this Hogan one that I think is very interesting. And it was the first episode. Started off with a really good episode. The next one is The Miz. Episode 2 is The Miz. And then again, this is a great one. This was a little different because I saw The Miz's WWE 24. I think it was 24. And there's a lot of things from that in this. The story about, once again, they don't talk about Chris Benoit, but he talks about he brings up the story that he was eating chicken over somebody's bag, and apparently the chicken was over Chris Benoit's bag. That was the thing. Chris Benoit made a big deal out of it and had Miz banished from the locker room to the point where Miz had to dress in the public bathrooms or in the janitor's closet. And it took 6 months. It actually took he had a match with The Undertaker. And after that match, he went to The Undertaker and asked, "Can you dress in the locker room?" Again, I think I've earned my pins for eating a piece of chicken. And they talk about the Daniel Bryan stuff later in his career. They talk about his teaming with John Morrison. They, some footage from the WWE 24 was in here from Morrison and Daniel Bryan. They talk about the cash in on Randy Orton, and you hear CM Punk on commentary, which is amazing. They talk about Miz Girl, which I'm surprised they didn't have Miz Girl, because in the Sasha Banks one coming up next, they had Izzy, talking about how Sasha Banks made her cry. Izzy, who's now, and again, I can't believe this. Izzy is she's like a grown ass woman. It's amazing. I'm getting so goddamn old. Anyway, I don't know why they didn't have Miz Girl on there talking to. Maybe they asked and she declined. Who knows? I think I saw something or I read something about, but they did like a Where Are They Now, and like she's another one who's grown up and she's like in college or something like that. I don't know if she still watches anything like that, but I think I remember something about them doing a story on there. Some company did a story or article on her or something like that. They go through all through Miz's, and this is a good one. And I think the thing we get from the Miz one is that going from the reality TV star, or from the Real World, which by the way, the production company that did this docuseries, Burnham and Murray, also was the original producers of the Real World. I don't think they produce it now. I think it's now there's some other company. It may just be MTV. I'm not sure, but it was the Bonham and Murray production. So yeah, they talked about the casting director and casting. They didn't get none of his folks, which again, those people went out of the thing. I think went out of the spotlight. Coral did 4 or 5 challenges, and then she stopped. I think maybe somebody else in that season maybe did a challenge or 2, but really you don't see nobody else from that Real World 10, the 10th season of the Real World Back to New York. You see nobody from that episode on anything, no challenges, no nothing. Now, I did not watch the challenges that they put on Paramount Plus. It's one of the things I've been willing to do. There's so much stuff out here to watch. I got stuff from September I still got to watch on my DVR. And then of course the Paramount Plus stuff and Peacock and everything like that. So I got a whole bunch of other stuff to watch. Can't get to it in time. But I think the moral of this story is that coming from reality TV to now being WWE superstar, Miz has earned his respect. Even though he's one of the best bad guys in the business, and I really do think if you don't like the Miz, if you don't, and I'm not talking about in a way of where like you boo him as a from kayfabe. I'm talking about in real life. If you do not like the Miz, there's something wrong with you. There's just something is. I'm willing to say that. But I think another good one was the Miz. Miz is the WWEEVIL special. 3 was Sasha Banks, and we get the story of Sasha Banks and where she was and who she became and everything like that. And I talked about Izzy, the fan who was a Bayley fan fanatic, and how at the Iron Woman match she made Izzy cry and everything like that. And so this one was, I thought this one was pretty good too. Um, they went into the things about the feud with her feud with Charlotte Flair, excuse me, and many other things. But I think one of the things they talked about, because they talked about even being a bad guy. But Sasha Banks, for the majority of her time, at least on the main roster, she's been a good guy. But she just had that kind of the badass personality. It's one of those anti-hero things, just like kind of Becky Lynch or something like that. She's egotistical, but in the way that fans would like it. The times that she has turned heel, it's been great. That they saw Natalia, and she was there. It's after her match with not Ronda, with Becky Lynch, and she was talking about it had been a year since her father died, and Sasha Banks come out there and thinking that she was going to console her, but beat her up, absolutely, you know, beat her up like crazy. And they talked about her match at WrestleMania last year, first 2 black women in the main event at WrestleMania in history. So they talked a lot of stuff about Sasha Banks. I thought it was okay too. Between the first 3, you know, Hogan and Miz were better than Sasha Banks one, but I liked it. Liked it a lot. The 4th episode was the Brothers of Destruction, Kane and the Undertaker. Now again, we're talking about Undertaker, who spent most of his career as a good guy. Never spent any. It's been his first year he was a bad guy in the business, and then he spent a little time in 90s, 99, being a bad guy, doing the whole Stephanie angle and things like that. But the most part, and he was a bad guy for a little bit too. After the invasion was over in 2002, it was he turned and then um, he became evil, but he quickly went back to being a good guy and being a good guy again. But this evil was different. This was more of a like their character persona evil of being the dead man and Kane being the evil returning, and they talked about that. I thought this one was again a good one too. And sorry about that. I took a phone call, and I don't necessarily know where I left off, but I know I was talking about the Brother of Destruction, episode 4, and we went into Kane and Brother of Destruction and everything like that, and we Undertaker, and it was a good one too. It was a good one too. That's what I would say. Um, and both guys had decades of destruction, and Undertaker had 2 decades of destruction, maybe even 3 decades. You can maybe even say, because he appeared in '91, and that's 2001, 2011, 2021 would have been a decade, but he went on 2020. So, but he almost had 3 decades of destruction. So good for him. And Kane, the same. He had 2 decades of destruction himself. So, wow. So yeah. Number 4, the Brother of Destruction was good as well. They went number 5. They went to Randy Orton, and Randy Orton heel persona, and again, it's really good stuff. And this one they delve deeper into like his younger days and him being immature and him being suspended for performance enhancing drugs and a whole lot of other things that has been that has been talked about with him and what he's done. Um, and what he's going through. And he's also talking about his work in the ring and how good of an evil bastard he really is. And he talks about how and he did it. He did it for us. He made a performance for us. How he gets hamped up and he can make the blood rush to his face and get pink and red and everything like that. So it was really fun to see. And I think Randy Orton, I think now at a very older age, I think he gets it. I think he gets it. And it's really fun. It was really fun to listen to him and then watch it. This might have been, it may be my favorite one of all the one with Randy Orton. So I really liked that one. The sixth episode was Stephanie McMahon, and this one was good too. They really talked about Stephanie McMahon and her come up from being the sweet innocent girl to the $1 billion princess and everything that went into it and her origin story of Vince having Undertaker attack her and things like that and kidnap her, all to get back at Stone Cold Steve Austin and then how she got her revenge on Vince and then everything went into the Man Healthy era. They talked about how the orange screen romance went off screen and all that stuff, and it goes into her and Triple H being the authority and being the you know being what it's supposed to be with that. What goes along with that, and being the heel on that one, and being evil in that. So, that one was a really good one too. Um, really enjoyed Stephanie McMahon one as well. So the final two, number 7 was Ric Flair, and they went Ric Flair story again. This is a lot of stuff that's been rehashed. The plane crash, 2 people paralyzed, and Ric Flair broke his back, but he can't. So he changed his whole thing and came back and became the Nature Boy, and things went on from there. Became one of the greatest of all time. The Four Horsemen and being the dirtiest player in the game. Everything they did, this rivalry with Dusty and Dusty. They talk about the thing with the Cold War with Russia and how Flair was fighting the Russians and Dusty Rhodes came out to save him and him and the Horsemen turned on Dusty and you got so wild that the fans tried to get into the cage and help him out. So that was wild, and he talked all about everything that went down, and then he jumped the alpha. Excuse me, I apologize for yelling. I've been getting up early a lot of days this week, so maybe it's catching up to me. But so yeah, they talked about his time in the WWF, and he finally looked at the WCW, and things have starting to change, and he's not the person he can be, and of course NWO happens, and again, and Flair loses all confidence in himself, and when he comes to WWF, he gets put with Hunter and the Chiefs of Orton for Evolution, and starts to gain his confidence back, and that all leads to the match at WrestleMania, his retirement match, and they talk about his influence on the culture, of young people and even older people, and how everything now is Ric Flair drip and limousine riding, jet flying, kids stealing, wheeling in 2 snaps to get a Ric Flair, woo, all those things, and talk about everything. I even think they put a clip in there. I couldn't really see, but I think they put a clip in there of maybe Montez Ford when Montez Ford was in the armed services, because it sounded like Montez and he was skinny guy like Montez, so it could have been him. So yeah, they talked about Ric Flair. Ric Flair maybe didn't change. He was, he was still he's still been the dirtiest player of the game, but he's just been, but now he's been loved for it, not hated for it, and so that was that one. That again, very nicely done. And then 8 was Roman Reigns. I really like this one too because this is now. And they talk about his upbringing and coming up and how leukemia ruined his football career, and then he goes to the WWE and he's with the Shield and everything like that, and then they try to turn him into a babyface, and it just he was just getting booed and not getting you know but what they don't say is that reason why he's getting booed, because let's face it, let's be real, we talked about this on this channel a lot. Reason why he was getting booed wasn't because that he was getting pushed down his throat. He was getting booed because it wasn't Daniel Bryan. WWE had the nerve to go away from Daniel Bryan being the top guy. They wanted Roman Reigns to be the top guy. He was, and they talked about it, and so that was all there. And they go into it and they talk about it, and he that's it, that it hurt him that they were still booing him, and he was supposed to be the top guy. And they talk about the match after WrestleMania 33 with Undertaker, and him coming out there and like for 10 minutes he's just he's being told to shut the fuck up, and he's being booed and being saying we don't want you here, or when everything else they was chanting you suck and everything like that, and he just goes up and says this is my yard now, and then drops the mic. We saw bits of the heel character there. Some of us even thought maybe that was going to be the start of it, but the next week he was back to being babyface Roman. And then they talk about this, his leukemia coming back for the second time, and and all of us, and talk about you know how he was come back. And again, I think it was part of the story, but I think one thing they did think about was that when he came back, he was primarily cheered. He wasn't booed. He was booed at WrestleMania 35. But that's New York, and a lot of the idiots are in New York. They're from New York, so a lot of horrible human beings booed man with cancer. I blocked one of the idiots who was up there telling people, because Roman said in one of his documentaries coming back from cancer on the network, he said you can guys, you can hear me, you can boo me, it's okay to boo me. And he goes on Twitter, Roman says it's okay to boo him, but we're gonna boo the fuck out of him, okay? No, dude, block. You're an idiot. And he's still an idiot. Now, again, I don't know why he has any type of it's just ridiculous. Anyway, and I don't mention names because I don't want to give him press. I don't. He doesn't deserve it. It's too much as it is. But and talk about so people at WrestleMania was booing him, and so then the pandemic happens, and he goes away because of he's a immune compromised because of his cancer. And he took some time. He said we wanted to come back. He wanted to come back different. He wanted to come back better. He wanted to come back in more of him. And he comes back to the character that he is now, and it's incredible. That's it. And we talked about this, right? Many times. Roman Reigns is the best thing going in wrestling right now. He's been the best thing on the mic. He's been the best thing in the ring. He's been the best thing rating-wise. He has just been the best. Point blank period in discussion. Anybody saying anything else is a shield for the other company, or a shield for a certain wrestler, or is just an idiot. Roman Reigns has been incredible, and I want to see him continue to be this character. I want to continue to see him beat evil. I want to see it happen. You know, maybe at some point they do turn him babyface, but I want it to be a natural turn. I want it to be something where it's just where even maybe something where he just, you know, maybe after he loses the championship, you know, which and that's something else that we have to think about as well with the unification match. Are there going to be two titles? There's rumors that there is going to be two titles. It isn't going to be one champion for both shows. The winner is just going to hold both titles, both the WWE and Universal Championship, which I'm not a big fan of. I don't think that should be, I think it should be one champion, and then who's going to beat him? Who's going to beat him for that title? So, um, and when does he lose it? Again, I think him losing it before next year's WrestleMania could be the question. I also could see him holding it up until WrestleMania 40, when you would have to. When I think you would do it, you would put it on Braun Breaker. You put it on Braun Breaker at WrestleMania 40. But yeah, there's so many other things to do. Um, uh, with Roman Reigns' character, it's not done yet, and it's gonna be fun to see how else he changes it and what they do about it. So yeah, those were the Reigns. That was a good one, and it was these 8 episodes were fantastic. And if you have not seen it, you need to go out your way and see it. Go out your way and see it. It's fantastic. Overall, I'm going to say that this is a 4-star um, docu-series. I enjoyed the hell out of it. That was really good. Um, Hopefully they do a season, a second run of this season, the second season of this docu-series, because there are more that you can talk about. You can talk about Charlotte Flair, you know. You can talk about many other. You can talk about Bobby the Brain Heenan. You know, you can talk about who's a heel, who's evil. You talk about Triple H. You didn't talk about Ring. Didn't talk about Triple H. Triple H maybe one of the best heels there ever was. You know, the Reign of Terror. You know, talk about that. Um, there's many others that you could bring on as well. So I thought this was a fantastic series, and I would say go ahead, find your way, sit down, put some time away, and watch it. This was awesome. Post your comments down below. Tell me what you guys think. Let you know what you guys think about WWE Evil. And if you have seen it, if not, again, go out there and see it. It's fun. Like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching. This is your boy, AJTRIP, signing off. As always, be good to each other, y'all. Be careful out there. And I am out.